with Bacon fans. I am here today with someone who's a dear friend, and she's been a guest on the show before. What have you been on the show before, Dr. Joy Francis? 3 times?
Um, just before we married, I think that was the last show we did. Yeah, I think that was the last one we did. So probably 4 or 5 years ago now.
Wow. How long have you been married?
Just under 4 years. We're going to have our anniversary in July, and it was so exciting being on your show because we were talking about singleness before I met my husband, then the whole engagement process, and then he ended up being on the show right before we got married. So I think that was my last memory of it, and we've checked in since. But I just think it's so neat that you got to be a part of that whole journey, and I don't know, it just flashes me back.
Yeah, well, so for my listeners who are not aware of who you are, you're a professor, and I had met you. We were teaching at the same university in Virginia Beach here, and then so you are an author of this is your third book, second book.
This My second book, but my third one is on its way. So, yep.
Here today to talk about this book, Friends Forever, which just came out, and I want everyone to read it. And I love it so much that I actually even is it on the back here? Is that I'm seeing that?
Yep, your quote's
Yep,
right there.
on the back, telling you how awesome it is. We're going to talk. Dr. Joy Francis is a teacher of communication, professor of communication at now a couple universities, currently in New York State. Yes.
Yes, yes. Since I got married, we moved upstate to be close to his family. And so I had to let go of some of the things I was doing in Virginia, but maintained the online teaching. And I teach also at a local school here because I miss the kids. You were right. You said I would eventually miss it, and I did. So I had to get back in the classroom and just be a part of those kids' lives.
Kind of, because you are, I mean, you really are a natural born communicator, and the Lord has put a message on your heart. I mean, so let's just start from the beginning. The book
Okay.
Friends Forever. You could tell us as much as you want about it, because obviously we don't want to give the secret. And then my next question is going to be, what caused you to start writing this book? So tell us a little bit about the book first.
Sure. And I have my copy here too. So this is kind of fun. I thought I'd throw it out there. It started as a dream, actually. I had finished my first book, which I happen to have here as well, You Are Beautiful. And I really wasn't looking to write another one, but I had this really powerful dream. And in the dream, the Lord gave me the ending for this story. And I just was like, wow, how do I write this book? And he goes, just write what you know. So it became a combination of stories of six really college graduates who go off and do their dream trips all over the world. They go to the exotic area of Brazil, or they go to England or out west. And, it kind of chronicles their adventures. There's romance in it, which, drives a lot of the plot. And then there's a very big surprise ending, which is really redemptive, but that was on the Lord's heart to write it. So I wrote it with the end in mind and kind of worked backwards, and these characters just evolved. But all of the story, actually, about 95% of the stories that you read actually happened, most of which to me. And so it's almost nonfiction, but it was just wonderful to kind of relive some of that stuff. But the ending was really why it got written. Mm-hmm.
So I know the story. I
Yeah,
know the
I know.
ending. So it's hard for me to do this, but can we let them know what genre of books it's in? Because you read Friends Forever, and I mean, I'd pick it up. Oh, okay, some kind of college clicky book. That's not what it is. Are you able to go a little and say what this has to do with?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of tough to not be a spoiler.
yeah. Without giving away the ending, there's a very strong pro-life theme that comes through, and it causes you to look at people in a different way. I think it's like you begin to see each of us is really valuable, and just intrinsically so, that we have gifts and talents and dreams and visions that the Lord put in our heart, and He created us for a purpose on this earth, and His desire is that we should walk out those purposes. And again, without giving it away, it's so hard.
It is
But
hard. It
oh,
is so good.
It is.
So
But
when I read it, and I didn't get to read the whole book. When you originally sent it to me, it was
yeah.
just a couple chapters. And all I remember thinking is, I want to get to the ending. I want to read this whole book. So when it came in the mail, as I said to you the other day, I totally forgot you were writing it because I mean, I'm living my life too. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's
It's
done. So yes,
yeah.
yes. So take why did you feel okay, so you said you just got this vision, you weren't thinking about writing a book, you just get this vision of an ending and you felt compelled to write a book.
Mhm.
um, let's go even further backwards then. Who
Okay.
are you? I mean, how if someone it's easier I think to describe Dr. Joy Francis and then kind of leading into this book than to just talk about a book. So who are you?
Whew, wow. Gosh, I got to think about that. I'm still kind of waking up on a Saturday, so just work with me on that one. I I would say I'm a worshiper. I'm someone who wants to love the Lord and fulfill the call that he has on my life. I want to be faithful for what he gives me. So if he gives me something, I want to be faithful to do it. I'm an artist. I've done theater and music and all of that. I've been teaching for a number of years. I won't name how many, but a lot. And just really love sewing into the lives of those kids. I've grown so much in that area too. Just, I have such a heart for kids. I want to see, I guess part of me wants to see them avoid some pitfalls, and part of me, in a protective kind of way, maybe a mothering kind of way. But I just, I love Jesus. I think that's the best way to describe it. I really do. And I pray it comes through in everything that I do. I really do. I think
Well, I
it,
think it does.
yeah.
Everything. And I started teaching at the same university as you. That's where people say,
Yeah.
there's um, purity. I think that's what she said. I think so. There's just something pure about you, and you and I are very similar in one way, where we aren't, walking with Jesus, but our paths were so well, kind of different, kind of the same. We both hailed from Wisconsin, which is
Yes, go Packers. I'm sorry, I had to
go
say.
anything, right? Go Brewers. I want to have
Yes,
some.
the
But
Vikings get a chip.
so
Okay.
I was 18 and I got pregnant and, I got married. And as my own book, The Super Couple, talks about, I, sadly fell into infidelity, had a fight for my marriage. Now we're married almost 37 years. You had an opposite path.
Yeah.
You saved on your journey. That's safe to say, right? I think we've talked about that on the other shows, but you saved yourself for marriage, and you had a struggle because you waited more years than you thought that you would have to wait to have a husband, right? And
Mm.
but it's so funny because he'll take both of our divergent decisions and he always pulls us back this direction when you're seeking to go after Jesus. Have you always gone after Jesus, or were you ever a wayfarer?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because there are themes in the book that touch on that too, because I had my little rebellious stage in my teenage years. Like I grew up in Wisconsin, homegrown, wonderful, decent folk, went to a Lutheran church, but a Catholic school. And I got the best of both worlds there. I had praying grandparents who loved me, but at the same time, there was still brokenness in my family. And I feel like I read a book when I was about 15. I love to read. And I read a book when I was 15 that kind of pushed me into the atheist mode for about a year. The Lord gradually brought me back. So he brought me back to him. It was more of an intellectual thing, but it was still rebellion in its own way, and just a real distance from God, not understanding that God was my father and that he was good and that he loved me and that he cared about me. And it wasn't just what I did that could earn it. It was that he set me apart. And so I've definitely had, and you'll see it in the characters in this book, a distancing from God in my teenage years, not understanding, the fullness of his love for me. I received unconditional love a lot from my grandparents and so forth. But my parents were really young when they got married, and they were trying to figure it out. They had 4 kids right in a row, and so it was a little bit of a struggle, but grandma and grandpa's house was my safe place. And so it was just, I always felt, just cared for when I was there. And it's not that my parents didn't love me, they did. But dad was working hard, and, mom was doing her best to be a mom. And so I grew up in that environment, but I had grandparents and great aunts who loved the Lord. And I'm telling you, I just felt his presence when I was a little girl going into mass. The Jesus movement had gone through, and I just felt his presence. And I always felt just safe and loved and protected in that place. And it just drew me to him. I looked at the cross every time I went to church, and I was drawn to him. I knew he had done that for me. And so that was all logged in. So later in college, when craziness happens and you're trying to reconcile different philosophies, and you're reading Camus and Nietzsche and all these people, it's like they all sound like truths, but there isn't truth in it. And so I really came back to the Lord and gave him my heart, and said, "You're Lord," when I was in college. And that kind of set me on the journey that you now see. But there was a period of wrestling and questioning. Is God real? Does he love me? Does he see me? Does he know me? And, I think that's probably part of the reason he put me in college to teach, because I get it.
It's an audience that you're partial to. I think he's given each of us an audience. I have a friend who loves teaching kindergarten. I'm like, oh, I like my little grandchildren, but I'm like, I want intellectually stimulating conversations. I didn't know that until later. So I too teach at the college level. I could go as young as high school, but I really love college.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you have a chance to change lives in a really, as you said, intellectual way.
Yeah.
God is intellectual. It's not just your heart. It's not just some naive, as the media try to paint Christians as some idiotic, just foolish people who have no sense in their head. So they choose to believe in God because what else do we have? Which we know that's a lie of the enemy. Because specifically at Regent University, where, I went and you got your degree as well. They had this whole campaign called Faith and Reason Combined. They're not paradox to one another.
Right.
They are so in line. I'm curious, a little off topic. So did your grandparents stay married, and did your parents stay married?
My grandparents were married all the way till they went home. They were married, and my parents too. And so that was a good precedent that was set in our family in a way. It doesn't mean there wasn't some dysfunction in the relationship.
Well, thank you for not making us think you were
No, it was, but I think there was stability in that in our family, at least, divorce wasn't an option really. I know I've had a sibling who's had to go through that difficult experience, but there's no judgment on it either. It's just, I'm grateful that, I had grandparents who could have a disagreement, but at the end of the day, they loved each other and they were together all the way. I know my grandparents, like my grandpa doted on my grandma, like doted on her. And so it was really good to see that model and to see that tenderness. And my parents were figuring it out. My mom was the one who gave me the 5 love languages, by the way, because it really impacted her in her marriage. And so, she was trying to figure out, does your dad love me? Because he would fix the car and change the oil and make sure she had a ceiling fan. What's that?
So he's an acts of service guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I was the same. When my marriage was troubled, I'm a quality time person. It's like, you never want to talk with me. It's like, I can multitask. I don't want to be multitasked. I want all your attention, right? It's my love language. So yeah, that's a great book, great gift, and a good thing your mom gave you. What's your love language, by the way?
I'm really 3, but words of affirmation is definitely quality time, but I'm also a hugger. So physical touch is right there. So, and physical touch is my husband. So it's just great because I say I love you to him when I rub his back or I play with his hair, and then he's starting to learn, oh, I have to say I love you. You know what I mean? It's like, I have to say it. She needs to hear it. So yeah. So we're figuring it out too.
We're not rambling on. I am leading you back to this book, Friends Forever. And we're trying to talk about the book as best as we can without giving away the secrets of the book. So for those of you tuning in late, my guest today again is is Dr. Joy Francis, the author of her most recent book here, Friends Forever. And it's got a pro-life theme in it. What age group is this good for?
I would honestly say anywhere from preteen all the way into mid 20s, because I mean, you can read it at any age. Honestly, my mom loved it, but I have been finally getting it to students, just if they wanted to read it. And I've really been touched by their testimonies. One gal wrote me, she goes, I never read. I just don't. But I picked up your book and I cried. I was emotional. Like as I'm reading this book, it was really touching me. I was laughing. She goes, I read it in one sitting. I just couldn't put it down. I had another student who had a difficult life experience. I don't want to give it away. And she read the book and it really ministered to her. So I think it's an adventure. It's a lot of fun. You go a lot of places you maybe have never traveled before. We'll have it in Audible at some point, but it's a journey. It's an adventure. But with these 6 folks, 2 are twins. So they're sisters that go out west, and have their adventure. And in the midst of that, they have a stepfather and a relationship that is trying to be mended there. So there's different scenarios for each one of them. One character goes to Brazil as a missionary and does work with orphans and street children. Another one goes to Romania. Another goes, let me think for a second. Well, 2 of them. One goes to England and one goes to Scotland, and they end up crossing paths. And so again, there's romance, there's adventure. It's if you want something that'll inspire you and lift you up, I encourage you to read it. But the ending is a surprise. But at the same time, what it does is it just reinforces the idea that everyone's valuable and there's something special about each person.
So we can't hide the fact that this has a pro-life issue, right? A pro-life thread.
Yes. Oh,
so
yes.
Let me take you there then. Have you been pro-life your whole life? And why are you so attached to that issue?
That's a good question. I think part of it, again, goes back to the dream and the vision that God gave me. Part of it, I did a short film when I was in grad school with the same theme based on another dream. But I think that thread is pretty persistent. I volunteer at different centers where young ladies come in crisis and need someone to talk to. And I've witnessed restoration with women who've had abortions. I've witnessed girls turning from that decision. I've witnessed babies being born. And I just see the intrinsic value that we each have. So it's something the Lord's put on my heart, but it's something of a revelation in that way. And of course, being one of 4 kids, all of my siblings, well, 2 of them got married young, and had kids right away. So I've been an auntie since college, really. And so it's like I have always had such a love for kids, and those kids are growing up, but it's so fun to be on Skype with them, just like and they're excited still to see me, and they're preteens or they're going into their teenage years, and it's like it's just really rewarding. I love kids. I always have loved kids. Yeah.
Well, I know for me, many people who've been following me in either writing or my radio show know about my own story that, getting pregnant at 18. But
yeah.
None of this is said to glorify me, but we couldn't afford college. I was, so I was enlisted into the Marine Corps. I was going to go. It was 1 year delayed entry. I was so excited because I was going into signals intelligence, which is basically I was going to be an interpreter, going to Monterey, California. I was going to go in this total immersion school, language school, and I hear everything. So I had all my dreams. I was 9th in my class. I was prom princess. I was captain of all the sports that I was, captain of the cheerleader. I was on homecoming court. I was newspaper, everything. I was in more things than any other student at our school. And then I got voted student of the year on my
Wow. I did not know that. Wow.
It was like I had my life planned. I had all these dreams and you know what I mean? And then I found myself pregnant. And it was so funny because I too am one of 4, and I'm the second, and my older sister. So when my mom finally told my grandmother, she goes, "Marie, the older sister. She goes, she's pregnant. And Marie at the time was 19. She goes, no, it's not Marie. And my grandma goes, well, Kathy's 17.
Oh,
And she goes, no, it's not Kathy. She goes, well, Kenny's 14, but it can't be Christine, right?
oh, wow.
Last person she thought of. And that just shows how it. And so what I did is I was terrified. I was pro-life. My boyfriend at the time, now my husband of almost 37 years, and I'll acknowledge that I have a better, in one sense, it was easier for me because my boyfriend said, let's keep the baby. Let's keep the baby. And but I was like, what do I do? I'm terrified. Before I told anybody, I was scared to death. So I made an appointment at Planned Parenthood because it's all I knew. And it's part of the reasons that I'm so passionate about it, because I see that people make decisions. We're talking about us both being pro-life here. People make decisions based on fear. And I was terrified of what I did not know would happen. I did not know my future. This broke my plans. And even as pro-life as I am, even having a boyfriend saying, let's keep the baby, I called Planned Parenthood. And here's what they said, Joy. And this, I'll never forget this. The date was July 13th, 1983. I almost killed my baby. And I called them when I was 2 weeks pregnant. And they said they couldn't abort yet. And I said, why? And as tactfully as they could, they said, basically, we need it to be big enough so that when we put it back together on the table, we need to see all the pieces.
Wow.
And I heard that, and it didn't set well with me. And I was still in Wisconsin, and my boyfriend was in the Navy, and he was stationed in Virginia. And he said, just come with me on vacation. Let's go. So I just graduated, because I was 2 weeks pregnant when I graduated. A month, actually, something like that. And so I was like, well, I may as well. So I went with him to Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
We walked around. So he went to work during the day, and I just stayed in our hotel home. Because, right, what do you do? And during the days, I would just be by myself, and I'd be praying. I'd be, I remember hitting my tummy like, God, I can't be pregnant. Make it go away. But of course, I'm such a sissy. I couldn't hit it hard. I was like, I'm not proud of any of that, but I want anybody watching to understand, I get your fear. I get it. I get that we make these horrible decisions based on fear. And that's always what it is. Whether you're afraid of your parents, afraid of the boyfriend, afraid of the future, it's always fear, because Satan operates in fear. And so one day, and I think you know this part of my story, but I'm not sure if you do. So I was walking around Norfolk, Virginia. He was on the ship during the day. And if you know anything about military and Navy ships, back in the day when they didn't have cell phones, right? If you wanted to call someone, you had to call the USS. What was he on back then? The USS Simon Bolivar? I don't remember. Glover, the USS Glover, he was on. And so you'd try to call, and it would be busy. And all the calls went through the quarterdeck. So hundreds of people on the ship all had one or two phone lines at the quarterdeck. So it'd be busy and busy and busy and busy. And so you have to keep calling, and maybe a fourth or fifth or sixth time you get through. And so this particular day, I'm walking, and I'm still kind of in shock. And I'm walking down it was a beautiful sunshiny day, kind of like it is today. And all of a sudden, from the sky, through my left ear came this voice that said, I'm going to keep my baby. And it came out of my mouth. And I looked, and I was like, it was an actual audible.
Wow.
And it came out of my mouth, I'm keeping my baby?
Wow.
I'm okay, and I looked to my right, and I happened to be standing next to a payphone. Like, those old people like us know that there were payphones everywhere.
There were payphones.
They had them every block, right? And so I walked over to the phone. Something compelled me. I walked over to the phone. I picked it up, and I called USS Glover. Quarterdeck picked up on the very first call.
Wow.
Quarterdeck, so-and-so speaking. I'm like, now my husband was a cook back then, and he was a low life, nothing to, right? So in terms of rank, he'd be the last anyway. So you usually have to get to the quarterdeck. You have to try to get down to the department at the belly of the ship. Then they have to wait to. Anyway, can I talk to Seaman Bacon, please? And they said, yeah, sure. So they connected me. He picked up immediately. So this whole series of
Wow. Oh, wow.
I go, I'm keeping the baby. And he's like, that's great. Okay. So I'm so happy because this is what kills me about abortion is that he had no say so in the life of his child. Just because it's in my womb, our society today has stripped men of all rights to their very own children. So when they say children are unwanted, it's like, that's not true. You've got plenty of dads who want their children, or plenty of adoptive parents who want this. It's a wanted child. I want your child. Come see me. I'll take your child. My daughter's to help me raise it, right? So my husband, my boyfriend back then, like, should I call our moms? And he's like, no, wait till I get off of work and we'll do it together. And I didn't really realize back then, because you don't find out everything about your parents until you age and you're mature enough. But my mother had been pregnant when she got married, and my mother-in-law was pregnant when she got married.
Oh, wow.
So they understood. And so both of them, little did I realize, were praying for us the whole time. Their prayers were answered, and they, God knew that this is where he would bring me 30 some years later, almost four decades. And July 13th would have been the demise of my daughter.
Wow.
Dad, I gave birth to this beautiful girl on February 27th, 1984, and she's produced 2 children, a happy marriage. And I'm like, it wouldn't have just been that one person. It would have been a family, a generation. And fear, yes, everybody doesn't have a boyfriend standing by their side. But once you get past it and say, I will do this, I am strong. One of the things Planned Parenthood and the pro-abortion people try to do is try to convince a girl that you can't handle this. This will ruin your life. And you and I know that's absolutely not the truth. That might not be the path that you had planned out for yourself. But here I am today, 36 years later. I have a radio show. I have a book. I, through the grace of God, save marriages for a living. And I, too, have spoken on pro-life topics and saving souls. And my passion for the topic comes. So I am so thrilled. Okay, so everybody knows it's got a pro-life theme in here. But it's good. It's not this preachy. It's not preachy at all. There's nothing preachy in it because, I'm not telling them. Anyway, so, you have heard tons of stories about girls who have been in positions like me. Have you, through your walk and through your own abilities, ever been able to convince a girl to choose life?
Yeah, I've had a few instances that really were powerful. I remember a young lady came to me, and I had taught at a high school before I started teaching college. And I did junior high for 1 year, and this little girl was
survived?
I did 1 year. That was it. I was like, I'm out of here, baby. See you later. I mean, it was tough. I really want to give a hats off to educators in elementary and junior high. I think junior high is one of the toughest ones. I got my first 3 white hairs at 23 teaching junior high. It was so stressful. But I remembered, she remembered me from that 1 year I was there. I had her later as a freshman in college. I didn't know her, but she recognized me, and she came to me, and I took abortion off the list because I was teaching a speech class, and it just was hard, every semester to hear the graphic details about it. It was just hard to have it presented in a way. And she said, will you please let me do that subject? Because I did. I had it on the docket every semester, but I took it off that one semester. And I looked her in the eye and I said, why? What is so important? I know you've got a story to tell. So she started to tell this story, and she's this beautiful blonde-haired little blue-eyed girl, 18 years old. And she started to share. She said, well, one day my mom went, she had this situation, and she explained I don't remember the dynamics now, but what I do remember was her saying that her mom went to this clinic, went in, signed off on the paperwork, got on the table, got strapped in. But right in the middle, right before they were about to perform the abortion, she said, "Stop. I can't do this. I can't do this." And they tried to actually talk her into continuing.
So many stories of that.
Yes. It's like, well, no, you're all prepped. Let's just go ahead. It's cold feet. She's like, no. And she got up off that table and walked out of that clinic. And she said, "Dr. Joy, I'm the little girl that she had." And I was like, whoa, I was just like, you can tell that story. So the Lord orchestrated it where she presented, like, a lot of people have their opinions about abortion. And if you're pro-choice, you don't want to hear about it, but she opened with her story about that, very, transparent about it. She had everyone's attention. And afterwards, I know a young lady came up to me and was sharing that, this was a decision, that she was talking about. And I had another student in the same situation where researching abortion caused her to simply say, she came up to me after class one day and she said, "Dr. Joy," she said she was pregnant. And she said, and she was on the pro-choice side of that argument. And she said, "But I think I'm going to keep my baby." And I was just like, whoa. So I've had situations where the Lord knew there was someone in that room that needed to hear that story. Or, like you could hear a pin drop when the first girl, the blonde hair, blue eyed, shared her story. I'm that girl. Everyone in the room was like, wow, I want to know more about what you have to say. So, yeah. And just even working, volunteering and helping, you get to see that. And you get to see restoration where people who've even had that experience have come out of it and receive healing. So, yeah, I'll stop. You go ahead.
No, because that's really what it is. I mean, obviously, your new book, this is Dr. Joy Francis we're talking to, and you can get her new book, Friends Forever, on Amazon.com, and it's got a very nice pro-life theme. But like those girls in college, I'm on Facebook and stuff, and I really feel like pulling myself off and just having my social media team doing it. Because
I know what you
those
mean.
who have an opinion on one side already aren't going to change to one degree. Those who have it on another, the way to change hearts is presenting it first in a way where we don't really know what we're being presented.
Mm-hmm.
Then, because we want to present it in a way that doesn't put one's guard up.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever does something like that. That's as close as we can get, right?
It does. It's so neat. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just talking about the book, the theme of the book.
Yeah.
Even picking it up, there's nothing on here that really tells someone that it's got this pro-life theme. So, let's do some marketing real quick first, even though I usually save that for the end of the show. Who would you say buy this book, and who would you give it for? Who is your first audience?
13-year-old girls, easily. Like, I would give it to, because they're dreaming about things. They're dreaming about what they want to do with their lives, going to school. And, we all have that heart for adventure, I think. I do, at least. And so I would give it to preteen to teenage girls first, to just present it to them, to let them know, just the value that we each have and carry. And then, I mean, my college students are reading it and loving it. Like, they're like, I can identify with this character or this character. I couldn't put it down. And when you talked about, like people who are a little hardened towards it, I had a young Navy guy read it. And he said he did not expect the ending at all, the way that things worked out. But he said, but you were peppy and happy. And I thought, well, let's give it a shot. Let's read your book. And he said, you presented everything in a non-political way. It was like, I was able to really hear what you had to say as it kept going. He said he wasn't an atheist, but he wasn't either, he had gone to youth camp when he was young. But he said even the way that it was presented for him, he was like, wow, at first I was resistant, but then as I read, I was like, wow, it got me to think about stuff in a different way. So I was like, okay, we got a hardcore Navy seaman who've got some,
awesome
insight.
I have a granddaughter who's 10 this summer, and she's a voracious reader. Do you think I should wait till she's older? A little bit older?
I don't know. I don't know if it would really be, it's a I don't think it would be a negative.
I think I'll present it, and then I'll give you feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me know. Cause I know, for sure, like that preteen and up would really, but I mean, she loves reading. She's a mature reader, and she's got a great vocabulary. She'd probably love it. But I know I would, yeah, if she's a voracious reader, there's nothing in it that is something that she couldn't handle, probably, as far as a mature theme. There's one or two things that I think would be a little tricky, but I think they're couched in such a way that,
She
it's.
asks questions if she had them.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
you can get this book on Amazon, Friends Forever, but I'm going to change a little bit because to me, I just keep sensing your first book. It really
Yeah.
connects to your first book, which you have a copy right there. I know mine's in the shelf. I didn't prepare to talk about it, so I don't pull it out. Yeah, you are beautiful. There's really a theme in your writing. So you
Yeah.
have a heart for letting people see their worth, their
Yeah.
beauty, which you do that in your book, Friends Forever.
Mhm.
Obviously, you are beautiful. Let's do a quick plug for that book and
Okay,
what's
sure.
that about? Who should read that one? Because I think if you enjoy one, you're going to enjoy them both. Men,
I,
women.
oh, that first one I love. Love, love, love. And again, this is my niece on the cover too. My little niece was on the
What
cover for
is
this
that?
one. Yeah, I insisted. My sister took the picture and I wanted to promote her as a photographer. So it's actually her on the cover in a field, in the Midwest, in the daisies. And so that book was such a part of my heart. I just wanted to give, it talks about you are cared for, you are loved, you are cherished. It's more of a devotional, but it's got real life stories, Bible stories, teaching stories in it. It's inspirational. And if you don't feel loved when you finish reading it, I don't know what to say. It's you should feel like you got the biggest, warmest, most amazing hug from the Holy Spirit when you're done, because it really communicates the idea in a biblical way too. Because I wanted something I could give my students that I couldn't just say, where in the Bible does it say all that stuff? Okay, I can give them something that says all of it in one package. And I had a student who was suicidal actually. And I gave it as an extra credit work if they decided to read it for one class. And it was Easter. It was Easter break. I found this out later. And I said, if you read it, give me a reflection paper so I know how did it impact you. I'm hoping to hear good things, but just what did that do? Well, little did I know he had been contemplating suicide. And he was because I didn't see him for a couple weeks. And he picked up that book for extra credit. He read it, gave his heart to the Lord, and then he went to church. We had our church doing at the university that we teach at. They took over the stadium and they did a church service there. He went there, gave his heart to the Lord, and I met him and his mom when he graduated. So it's a book that communicates value and just how important we really are to God.
And it's well written. Again, it's not the word that keeps coming to my mind because, like, I subscribe to Pure Flix and I will keep it.
Yeah.
That can be a good movie, but so many of them are cheesy Christian movies.
Yeah.
And I want something with meat, like, like Unplanned was, The Passion of the Christ.
Yes. Oh, I love those. Yeah.
My gosh, just great. Or, even anyway, Courageous, some of the really well done Hollywood actors. So when you hear, and I put this out there because they try to give Christians such a bum rap. This is well written. You Are Beautiful and Friends Forever because you're still a college professor. You have a very eloquent but clean way of saying
Mhm.
there's no cheese. It's
Yeah.
love. It's
Yeah.
truth with no cheese.
Mhm.
And it is written to someone who has an academic mind can enjoy it as well. And I too have kept it on my list of books to assign for, um, particular papers. And
Yeah.
men in my class have chosen that book as well. I should have given you feedback, but it's
You're okay.
awesome to see people. Joy, Dr. Joy Francis.
Hmm.
I think all of us want to know that we're beautiful and that we're loved and that we're invaluable. And some of us don't figure that out till we're 60, 70, 80 years old. And the sooner we can figure it out, the better.
Yes.
Grateful for that book. The people know you're valued. Even if you're a homeless person on the street and the society says you have no value, you're of inestimable value.
Yes.
Your writing does that. That's why your name is Joy, right?
Yeah, and it's so neat because it's on his heart. Like I had a student who was really broken and beautiful and intelligent, and she's sitting there in the chair with, across from me, and I'm like, how can I communicate to her that, I mean, just what a gift she really is. But you're right. I've had students who were homeless for 3 years. Where I live now, I'm amazed by some of the brokenness I'm encountering with some of the students. And it's the idea that there is a loving father that cares about them, that sees them. And it moves my heart, but it moves his. So it was on his to write this. And it's like, but the impact has been really, really dramatic. I've had domestic abuse victims read it and understand that they're worth something. But one of the things that's really cool about the book is that all the proceeds from the first book go to charity, all of them. Like they go to restoring trafficked victims. And there's nothing about trafficking in this book at all. It's all about value and that you're cherished. And again, if you don't feel like you should feel so loved, when you're done, you should feel so loved and understanding who you are.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's a great place to remind our watchers, viewers, listeners that they can get either of these books at Amazon.com. And again, the titles are Friends Forever for the first one, Forever, and
Yeah.
You Are Beautiful. And before I kind of cut us off, I'm really curious. What are your thoughts on that third book that you're percolating? Able
Oh,
to
this
share?
this is so cool. Yeah, because I'm writing it right now. It's called True Love Stories, and it starts with a story of the romance of a couple, a true story, and then evolves into what they would say if you were going to tell someone the best marriage advice ever. What would you tell them? But I'm going to do a volume set of it. So that way, I always want to feel like I finish a book, and this is going to be an ongoing one. So I'm sure I'm going to pull you at some point for future volumes for sure. But and I'll include some of my love story in there too. But every girl wants, that knight in shining armor, that romance, that experience. And so it brings that in, and it's true. And then it's okay, now if you're going to go forward with marriage, these are some things we learned that are really valuable that we think would help you. So each chapter is one couple's story. And again, it'll be multi-volume. I'm hoping for 6 or 7 for the first one, and then continuing from there. Hopefully
Seven
publishing
for the
soon.
first one, 6 or 7 stories in the first book.
Yeah, in the first book. And then just continuing, because eventually it'll be about family too and all of those elements. But that he put that on my heart before I ever met my husband and got married. And I actually started writing a little bit of it before that. And because we teach similar courses, we both have a lot to pull from with communication between the sexes. So there was a lot of resources there, but now walking it out really where you hit the rubber meets the road. Wow, marriage is a journey. But I'm
Yeah,
telling
I
you,
have loved watching our evolving conversations from you with, I hope I meet someone. I'm single, but if I don't, I'll take this. And then I think I met someone. I think he's the one. And then after you're married, you're like, okay,
yeah,
this got real after about 2 years. You're like, okay. I mean, because it's natural progression. You knew intellectually that the honeymoon stage had to wear off, even though none of us wants it to wear off. But if it didn't wear off, you wouldn't go forward into writing your books or living. You'd still be like, I'll just sit with you and snuggle.
yeah.
Who needs to write a book, right? It's like, no, God's got a plan for you. Yeah, so 4 years of marriage, you're right. You've walked into, I know it's not good in one sense, but it's good that you've felt some of the stresses of marriage because you get it. You get
Yeah,
it.
it,
And you're
it's
so
worth it.
high of these levels that you can deal with your
Hmm.
students and all the people you encounter.
Yeah.
What would you say is your mission in life?
Let me think about that for a second. I was thinking about this just a second ago before you even said it, but I think I would say I'm an artist, and I think an artist is going to, especially when you do something redemptive and when you want to honor the Lord through what you do, if you're an actress and you can't be on stage, you're going to sing. Or if you can't sing, you're going to paint. Or if you can't paint, you're going to write. Or if you can't write, you're going to do a flower garden. You know what I'm saying? And I love Edith Schaefer because she talks about art in the Bible and with her husband, but the idea that in everything that we do, we glorify God. So whatever I'm doing, whether I'm worshiping or walking or gardening or doing the cool stuff we're doing today, it's like I want to glorify God with my life and enjoy him, I guess, in the midst of that forever. I want my life to be a song of praise to him. So my marriage is a song of praise to him. You know what I mean? Even when we struggle sometimes and there's difficulty understanding each other, it's like I want at the end of the day when I see him to say, yes, good job, Joy. Woo-hoo! It wasn't always easy, but you loved me. You loved me all the way to the end. And I want to love him all the way to the end.
Oh, that's a great place to end the show, and I
Mhm.
think you're going to do it with God's grace. You're going to love God. You'll love him till the end, and you know he'll love you back.
Yeah.
Again, for all of you who've been watching, we appreciate you. We just want nothing but the best, God's best for you in your life. I do so want you to get a copy of this book, Friends Forever, which you can get on Amazon. And if you forget, you can go to my website, Breakfast with Bacon. You know what? I didn't even put a plug in for me. Go to breakfastwithbacon.com. I'll have information on my guests, on each of my guests, so you can, if you forget that. Never forget that. But go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. You can see this show. You can see all the shows I've done in the past. You can also find me on all social media. So what are we supposed to say? YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of them. Like and definitely subscribe to this YouTube channel. And God has blessed me with fantastic guests, and I thank you for being one of them.
No, thank you for inviting me. You're just such a blessing. You really are. Thank you. Oh,
Have a
Christine.
wonderful day, and I'm going to sign us off here. And let's see. Okay, so we'll just say goodbye before I pick our guest, and I'll stop our recording. Thank you all.